condition. Comfort your children and open our hearts to hope, so that we might feel your fatherly presence in our midst.
La parola del Signore dal Vangelo secondo Marco. In quel giorno, venuta la sera, Gesù disse ai suoi discepoli: passiamo all'altra riva e concedate alla folla.
From the Gospel according to Mark. On that day, as evening drew on, he said to them, "Let us cross to the other side." Leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. A violent squall came up, and waves were breaking over the boat, so that it was already filling up. Jesus was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. They woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Quiet, be still." The wind ceased, and there was great calm. Then he asked them, "Why are you terrified? Do you not yet have faith?" They were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this? Even wind and sea obey."
Normally, mag-misa siya lang doon sa gilid sa pinakataas.
Silence.
Pag mag-misa siya, nasa taas siya. Eh, wala tao eh.
Venuta la sera, così inizia il Vangelo che abbiamo ascoltato.
When evening had come, the gospel passage we have just heard begins like this. For weeks now it has been evening. Thick darkness has gathered over our squares, our streets, and our cities. It has taken over our lives, filling everything with a deafening silence and a distressing void that stops everything as it passes by. We feel it in the air. We notice in people's gestures. Their glances give them away. We find ourselves afraid and lost. Like the disciples in the Gospel, we were caught off guard by an unexpected turbulent storm. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed. All of us called to row together, each of us in need of comforting the other. All of us are on this boat, just like those disciples who spoke anxiously with one voice, saying, "We are perishing." So we too have realized that we cannot go on thinking of ourselves, but only together can we do this.
È facile ritrovarci in questo racconto. Quello che risulta difficile è capire l'atteggiamento di Gesù. Mentre I discepoli sono naturalmente
It's easy to recognize ourselves in this story. What is harder to understand is Jesus' attitude. While his disciples are quite naturally alarmed and desperate, he stands in the stern, in the part of the boat that sinks first. And what does he do? In spite of the tempest, he sleeps on soundly, trusting in the Father. This is the only time in the Gospels we see Jesus sleeping. When he wakes up, after calming the wind and the waters, he turns to the disciples in a reproaching voice. Why are you afraid?
Non avete ancora fede?
Have you no faith?
The live.
Yeah.
Why is it
Cerchiamo di comprendere in che cosa consiste la mancanza di fede.
Let's try to understand. In what does the lack of the disciples' faith consist as contrasted with Jesus' trust? They have not stopped believing in him. In fact, they called on him. But we see how they call on him. Teacher, do you not care if we perish?
Non ti importa.
Do you not care?
Pensano che Gesù si disinteressi di loro.
They think that Jesus is not interested in them, does not care about them.
Per noi, nelle nostre famiglie, una delle cose che fa più male è quando
One of the things that hurts us and our families most is when we hear it said, do you not care about me? It's a phrase that wounds and unleashes storms in our hearts. It would have shaken Jesus too, because he, more than anyone, cares about us. Indeed, once they have called on him, he saves his disciples from their discouragement.
La tempestà smaschera la nostra vulnerabilità.
The storm exposes our vulnerability and uncovers those false and superfluous certainties around which we have constructed our daily schedules, our projects, our habits, and priorities. It shows us how we have allowed ourselves to become dull and feeble, the very things that nourish, sustain, and strengthen our lives and our communities. The tempest lays bare all our prepackaged ideas and forgetfulness of what nourishes our people's souls. All those attempts that anesthetize us with ways of thinking and acting that supposedly save us, but instead prove incapable of putting us in touch with our roots and keeping alive the memory of those who have gone before us. We deprive ourselves of the antibodies we need to confront adversity. In this storm, the facade of those stereotypes with which we camouflage our egos, always worrying about our image, has fallen away, uncovering once more that blessed common belonging of which we cannot be deprived, our belonging as brothers and sisters.
Perché avete paura? Non avete ancora fede?
Why are you afraid? Have you yet no faith?
La tua parola stasera ci colpisce e ci
Lord,
riguarda tutti.
Your word this evening strikes us and regards all of us in this world that you love more than we do. We have gone ahead at breakneck speed, feeling powerful and able to do anything, greedy for profit. We let ourselves get caught up in things and lured away by haste. We have not stopped before your approach to us. We were not shaken awake by wars or injustice across the world, nor did we listen to the cry of the poor or of our gravely ailing planet. We carried on regardless, thinking we would stay healthy in a world that was sick. Now that we are in a stormy sea, we implore you, wake up, Lord.
Perché avete paura?
Why are you afraid?
Non avete ancora fede?
Have you yet no faith?
Signore, ci rivolgi un appello alla fede.
Lord, you are calling to us, calling us to faith. which is not so much believing that you exist, but coming to you and trusting in you. This Lent, your call reverberates urgently. Be converted. Return to me with all your heart. You are calling us to seize this time of trial as a time of choosing, a moment of decision. It is not the time of your judgment, but of our judgment. A time to choose what matters and what passes away. A time to separate what is necessary from what is not. It is a time to get our lives back on track with regard to you, Lord, and to others. We can look to so many exemplary companions for the journey who, even though fearful, have reacted by giving their lives. This is the force of the Spirit poured out and fashioned in courageous and generous self-denial. It is the life in the Spirit that can redeem, value, and demonstrate how our lives are woven together and sustained by ordinary people, often forgotten people, who do not appear on the front page of newspapers and magazines, nor on the grand catwalks of the latest show, but who without any doubt are in these very days writing the decisive events of our time. Doctors, nurses, supermarket employees, cleaners, caregivers, providers of transport, law and order enforcement personnel, volunteers, priests, religious men and women, and so very many others who have understood that no one reaches salvation by themselves. In the face of so much suffering, where the authentic development of our peoples is assessed, we experience the priestly prayer of Jesus, that they may all be one. How many people every day are exercising patience and offering hope, taking care to so not to panic, but shared responsibility? How many fathers, mothers, grandparents, and teachers showing our children in small everyday gestures how to face up to and navigate a crisis by adjusting their routines, lifting their gaze, and fostering prayer. How many are praying, offering, and interceding for the good of all. Prayer and quiet service. These are our victorious weapons. Why are you afraid? Have you yet no faith? Faith begins when we realize we are in need of salvation. We are not self-sufficient. By ourselves, we founder. We need the Lord, like ancient navigators needed the stars. Let us invite Jesus into the boats of our lives. Let us hand over our fears to Him so that He can conquer them. Like the disciples, we will experience that with Him on board, there will be no shipwreck, because this is God's strength, turning to the good for everything that happens to us, even the bad things. He brings serenity into our storms, because with God, life never dies. The Lord asks us, and in the midst of our tempest invites us to reawaken and put into practice that solidarity and hope capable of giving strength, support, and meaning to these hours.
Oh, you're so heavy na.
when everything seems to be floundering.
Il Signore ci risveglia per risvegliare
The Lord awakens
Kuya is my
so as to
baby.
reawaken and revive our Easter faith. We have an anchor. By his cross we have been saved. We have a rudder. By his cross we have been redeemed.
abbiamo una speranza
We have a hope.
nella sua croce